and thanks for coming. I'll show a short clip before I start talking.
The Rio Chama is the wrestling place of tomorrow.
When you've moonscaped a place and nuked the forest, it just tears your heart.
We were one people all the way down. We're from ice cap to ice cap.
Without the land, we're nothing. We are products of the land.
If you were to buy a white pickup, and I like that pickup, I would find a way to steal it from you. That's what happened to the land, okay?
All right, so that was just a 30-second trailer from the documentary that I just finished making this last week. And I grew up in New Mexico, and the project came from a really deep interest in the place and looking at how history and a very, very diverse set of cultures and stories make up a place where water is scarce and definitive in an arid landscape. So this spring, my friend Mark and I went out to the Southwest. This is Mark. He's also a student here, a third year. We put on cowboy hats. We talked to people all over the place throughout this watershed, the Chama watershed. And a watershed is an area of land where all the water that falls as precipitation and stays on the surface will flow into one river eventually. So this map was drawn by John Wesley Powell in 1890 when he was the head of the U.S. Geologic Survey. And he proposed to Congress that instead of dividing Western states by arbitrary straight lines, we use these organic shapes, watersheds, to do our politics and to deal with issues like allocating water for agriculture and things like that. And when I was working in New Mexico this summer, I met a man named Jack Leffler who introduced me to John Wesley Powell's ideas, and I loved it. I think it's so intriguing, and I think this way of thinking like a watershed is really a promising way to deal with some of the challenges of water scarcity, of a changing climate. So Mark and I really engaged with this idea of thinking with this ecological logic. These people in the trailer you saw, Steve Harris, he's a river guide. He runs Far Flung Adventures, and he's been an activist along the Chama for 25 years. This is Mary Stuver. She's the district forester who works for the state in the area and a writer. This is Wainwright Velarde. He's a Jicarilla Apache tribal councilman and works in all sorts of community action projects in the reservation. This is Frank Sims, quite a character. He breeds elk for the Jicarilla Apache Nation's hunting ranch, and he is the chair of the Chama Peak Land Alliance, has a lot to say. This is Manuel Trujillo, also has a lot to say. He's a traditional acequia farmer. He was a legislator in New Mexico when he was 26 years old. And all these people were very, very important teachers to Mark and I while we were out in New Mexico. And it really gave a lot of meaning to the idea of community school, of going out and entering a place, being immersed in a place, and learning from the people who are working, who are on the ground, doing things every day. And I think it's such a gift of this place, of this school, that I was allowed to go out in collaboration with a friend and fellow student and learn from, just these community members near my house. I did the Yucatan immersion program in my second year here, and this was as intense or more intense, and it was like being immersed in my neighbor's life. It's just, you don't need to go far to learn so much and to be uncomfortable and to find these new stories. So another really important facet of what we learned in the Chama was about history. This building is in Tierra Amarilla, which is the county seat for Rio Arriba County, which is where the watershed is. And all the buildings are falling down except the administrative buildings of the state. But this one in particular is painted up with all these messages about a raid and June 5th, 1967. And on that day, a group of farmers from the area who had lost a lot of their land to the Forest Service and to private land buyers in a lot of sketchy dealings went with guns to the courthouse and raided this courthouse. It's a state courthouse, and a shootout broke loose. This is 67, so a lot of these people are still alive. It's a hot issue still. And that intensity of the history, the aliveness of the history was very compelling to us and encouraged us to look at how not only does, science and the physical climate of Watershed and hydrology affect how people use water, but so does history, so does culture, so does conquest. And that is a deeply seated thing in New Mexico. It's been conquested more than once by Spain. Mexico gained independence from Spain, and then the United States came. And all of this relates back to this river. This is the Chama River flowing through Abiquiu. And so with all of these layers, it is just fascinating to take the time to learn about a place that I think of as home. With a friend of mine, Mark's from Nova Scotia, so he was really a foreigner to a lot of people there. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity. And next year, I'll be taking this same structure for learning onto a Watson Fellowship to learn in various parts of the world. So I'd like to thank these folks. And here's a little map that Mark and I drew with overlays on Google Earth. We had a lot of fun doing that. So thanks so much.